Welcome, folks, to another podcast in the series on building high performance teams. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Mathieu Cote. Mathieu is the VP for Business Development for Salesforce for the Southern region. Matt, I hope I got your title right there, Matt. It is super to see you today. Was really looking forward to having you on. Welcome.
Who cares about the title, right? I'm super happy to be here, Dara. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Um, Matt, I'm going to jump straight in. Obviously, Matt, you and I have known each other for a long time, but I'd love if you could share a bit about yourself professionally and anything you'd like to share about yourself personally for anyone who might be viewing this.
Sure. Maybe I'll start with the personal. So my name is Mathieu Cote. I'm a French national. I grew up and born and raised in Lyon, near in France, and I've been in Ireland now for 15 years. So I live in Dublin with my wife Tara and my two children. So I'm in that point where I probably almost consider myself being Irish. I haven't gone for the citizenship yet, but certainly, and even in my accent, you can feel that it's somewhere in between. I've been in Ireland for the last 15 years. I started my career here in Ireland. I had a previous career in sales in France, but I really found I think my calling when I came to Ireland and I joined Dell Computers in 2005. And I think through Dell I found that passion and that love for inside sales, which at the time wasn't a big thing. There was little companies that were doing it, and certainly very little companies that were doing it at the scale that Dell was doing it.
Yeah,
And I kind of fell in love with that culture, I would say the metric driven, the predictable, let's say the predictable model, and
yeah,
being able to build and scale very quickly. And also the international, for me, was a real appeal to be in an international team and the culture that was there.
yeah.
So from Dell, I moved to VMware where I met you in 2009 or 2008, I think, yeah, 2008. And there again, it was about scaling and growing the team. I joined as one of the first reps into the inside sales team for VMware for EMEA.
Yeah.
And over the course of the next 4 years, I was leading the Southern EMEA inside sales team with about 35 people. So it was an amazing journey of actually taking what I had learned from Dell and my passion for the inside sales and seeing and growing the model. And then I had the chance, or sometimes things happen like this, but I think for a reason. I got a phone call from a recruitment company looking for a director for sales development for Salesforce.
Mhm.
And I didn't know much or anything about sales development specifically, but I knew quite a bit about Salesforce. You and me were on the implementation project
Yeah,
for Salesforce at VMware, and I've always been going, wow, it's an amazing product, and that really makes me successful, in my role and helping to drive my business.
yeah.
I wonder how does Salesforce use Salesforce, and I'd love to see, what it is to be part of such a company. And so I joined Salesforce in 2012 as the director for their sales development team. Small team at the time, about 35 people. Today, that same team is about 500 people.
Wow, wow.
So massive growth over the last nearly 9 years
That's
now,
incredible.
and delighted to have been on this journey and build and scale the team. So that's me in a
Excellent.
nutshell.
Excellent. That's a great synopsis. And I guess one of the reasons that I was really looking forward to chatting to you as well about kind of leadership and high performance is that I do remember you coming into VMware. I think I might have been there a year or so beforehand, actually working with the IT team as a project manager. But you very quickly went from that kind of sales rep individual contributor role into a leadership role, and and then your career just took off on a massive trajectory when you went into Salesforce, and it was absolutely of no surprise to me whatsoever. And it was wonderful to see you progress through the years. and you've had some wonderful experience as a leader, Matt. And I guess that kind of brings me on to my next question about, what if you can tell us what leadership means to you.
Yeah, I mean it's a broad topic. I think being a leader, there is a part of it. There's always the question. I think you had this in your previous podcast. Nature versus nurture. How
Yeah,
much of it do you acquire, and how much of it do you have in you? I think you need to have something in you, that brings you to want to lead people, not for the fame or the glory or the title or anything like this, but just because it's exciting.
mm,
It's exciting to, bring a vision, bring change, trying to do something. And in Salesforce we talk about trailblazers, but to blaze those trails and to go somewhere where nobody has been. For me, that's also what a leader is.
yeah,
But I think in the leader, in the nurture, there is all that sense that you're learning that the leader is a lot about empowering others, and it's giving the space and creating that safe space for others. So there is that sense of creating the vision,
mm,
setting the expectations and being clear around the expectations. But at the same time, there's really that caring for the people and creating the environment where psychological safety is at the center of what we do, where having a safe place to fail is important, and where people feel empowered to come and bring the best of themselves every day. I think
yeah,
that's, for me, that's what a leader is.
yeah, yeah. And I love that. I love that mention of the excitement. I mean, you clearly you get a buzz out of it. It's part of what drives and motivates you. And Matt,
The,
can I
the,
ask?
the, the only the other thing, sorry, just to add, that comes into my mind, I also see the leader as the one that will step up to inspire the team in the
Yeah,
moments where things might look a bit dull. And if I look at the past year, you know, it's been pretty tough. I think
yeah,
let's call it cat a cat. It's been tough for a lot of companies out there, for a lot of people,
yeah,
professionally, personally. And I think it's when leaders step up and recognize the challenge, but help people to see something, to see maybe the light at the end of the tunnel, or the silver lining, or whatever that is,
yeah.
so that the glass is half full and that there's positivity and that we're moving forward together.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I read a great article. I can't think of it now in part of my research, and they were talking about the massive impact that a leader has just in their sense of being or how they are in their office, their mood, etc., and how that feeds down to the team. So being able to inspire people is absolutely crucial. That makes total sense. Um,
On this, and maybe it's a side note, sorry, I keep
oh,
interrupting
that's
you, but
okay.
you know, it's only, and maybe that will help some people that listen to this that are on this leadership trajectory, but I realized quite far in my career, on my leadership career, how much my voice had an impact on
Mm,
people. Sometimes you think you're one of the lads and you're just whatever, your voice has the same. But once you're a leader and once you're at the top, your voice, your mood, whatever you do, your communication affects a lot of people. They all look at it, see it, and take whatever they want from it. And so it's really important that you're measured in your message, that you communicate with intent, that you are balanced, in what you're saying, and that positivity is, you know, here most of the time. And even if you don't feel it necessarily, that you can bring that positivity to the people around you.
that's a really interesting insight. Even as you're saying it, I'm just thinking back to times when I've been listening to leaders myself, and it does have a massive impact. And it probably comes back to the kind of self-awareness piece from the leadership, from the leader themselves, to understand that. That's a really cool insight. I like that. Um, Matt, can I ask you on kind of planning versus intuition? Where would you see yourself falling from a leadership perspective?
I think I've changed. If you ask my team when I joined Salesforce, I was known for being the spreadsheet man.
All right.
I was planning everything, especially in sales development, where a lot is thinking about the funnel and the leads that come in and how you do this. So I would
Yeah.
be quite analytical, and I think my analytical side kind of was there a lot.
Yeah.
I think as I grew as a leader, and I probably needed less to do that analytical side because I have great people in my team that do that for me. I focused more on the people side and the culture side that is actually the important one. And
Yeah.
what is the culture that you want to create in the team? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there is a planning. There's definitely planning. You cannot do without planning. I really think planning, focus, and execution are really important. Those are the
Yeah.
things that you need to have. But I'd leave space for creativity as well, and a bit of the intuition and the gut feeling. Probably a
Yeah.
bit more than I did in the past.
Yeah. And I guess that's interesting. You're like now you have, I guess, specialists in the kind of data analysis and operational side. You can use that to kind of feed your own knowledge so that you can focus more on that creative side to get the more out to get more out of people. That's at least that's kind of how I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Maybe I spend less time doing the number crunching and the analysis, but I have a great team that's doing it, and I'm more into piecing together bits of
Yeah.
information that gives the bigger picture and
Yeah.
maybe help people keep on the bigger picture rather than the minute details. And I think that's also, to go back to a leader, is maybe somebody who's able to extract themselves from one particular situation and see how all things interact together.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one too. And being able to extract yourself, I guess, as you're moving into an individual or into a leadership role, you kind of have to move away from those things that maybe you would have focused in on in the past, where it was like if you were a data person in the past and now you're in a leadership role, you got to focus on the people, you got to focus on the creativity, trying to extract yourself as especially if you were known as spreadsheet man, trying to extract yourself from that, something that you must have got some enjoyment out of, must have been a challenge.
Yeah, I would say you need to find the balance.
Yeah.
You need to find the balance because the other way is not, you can't just be, and I've met many of them, but the creative leader, the one that only has the idea but
Yeah.
not the execution because they're not able to have enough detail, if not enough level of detail and focus.
Yeah.
So it's really about how do you find that right balance between being in the details but not too much that your team feel like it's micromanagement,
Yeah.
but in the detail enough so that you know where your business is going and you have control over your business.
Very good. That makes total sense. And Matt, can I ask you, you've managed, you say a small team of 35. 35 I actually think is quite big. So, but and up to, 500 people, which is enormous. I mean, it's a different ball game altogether. I've certainly never had anything like that experience, and it just sounds like awesome, for want of a better expression. But can you give me kind of your view on what you see as the key characteristics for those teams to get high performance in those teams, or what you see as key characteristics of those high performance teams, I should say.
So yeah, I think the numbers, there's not much difference whether it's a 35 people team or a 500 people team. um, I think it kind of crept on me, and there's a moment where I went, holy cow,
Yeah,
now it's 400, 300, 400,
yeah,
whatever number it was. I was going, oh, I can't believe that I'm leading a team like this, which is also, back to the how you show up yourselves. You kind of need to show up for a 500 people team, maybe a little bit differently than you do for a 35 people team.
yeah,
But in essence, is the same thing, and I didn't really realize. Just because I had a great team, I built a great team under me, and I think it's all about this: is who are the people that complement you, and I think humility and vulnerability are important factors for a leader.
yeah.
I tell you that the people that I have under me are more often than not better than me, and
Right.
but we
Yeah,
com- we complement each other. We have
yeah,
different strengths, and we build a team based on the strength of the team and the diversity in the team. So I think having that team under me really helped. But at the core, there's four things that are important for me and that I'm trying to do with my team. I didn't invent it. It came from a book that I read that I really recommend. That's called The Four Obsession of the Extraordinary Executive by a guy called Patrick Lencioni. So maybe we can refer it somewhere in the podcast. But
Absolutely.
the book is really easy to read. It's a fable around two businessmen and two CEOs that drive their team and very different approaches and who succeed and who doesn't. But the four obsession, the first one is around cohesion. It's around cohesion of your team and how do you get people that come from diverse opinions, that where you encourage healthy conflict,
Yeah.
but that are cohesive, so that if you say something, you don't have three that think one way and another one the other way, or you get really people that might not be bought in 100% in the message, but when it's time to go out and pass that message, they're 100% behind it.
Right.
And so I think building the cohesion of the team has been a focus for me. It's not easy to do. I can't say that I've done it well every time in the past and in all circumstances, but I can say that it was always a focus.
Yeah.
So now I have the chance of having, as I said, a fantastic team, and I think we have a great cohesion within the team. But that's the number one thing if you want to drive performance.
Okay.
The second thing is clarity of vision. So how do you build that clarity of vision that once you're cohesive and you all feel as a team, you're all going in the same direction, doing the right thing or the same thing. So we have a process at Salesforce called the V2MOM, which is uh, vision, values,
Yeah.
methods, obstacles, and metrics. So basically defining what is our vision for the team and what we're trying to achieve. What are the underlying values that are supporting that vision, and then what are the methods? So the what are we going to do? And you're going to break it down very specifically around the things that you want to achieve. What are the obstacles to achieve those things? And finally, how are we going to measure it? Because
Mm.
if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. And this is a process. I'm bang in the middle of it at the moment. We just had a session yesterday with my team and all my business partners. I try to involve as many people as possible so that it's a kind of collegial way of looking at it. And
Yeah.
then we refine it, but everybody's bought into that vision and there is clarity in what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The third point is around communication, or what we call over communication. Is once you have a message, and I'm probably known for being quite simple in my message, but I've been hammering the same message. It's almost like a branding exercise. You need to think in terms of marketing.
Yeah.
I have a few formulas or a few things that I say that will stick in people's mind and that's what I say. And just on this, that's something I learned quite late. At the beginning, I thought that to be a leader or to be interesting, I had to change and have a different message every time and be the most interesting person in the room and have great insight and whatever. And I was wrong. I think the best thing that a leader can do is being very simple, very concise, and very clear on his message and repeat it as many times as possible to as many people as you can. Because people will hear one thing and 2 minutes after they'll have forgotten what you said. And
Yeah.
if you say a different thing every time, they're never going to get you. But
Yeah.
if you repeat and hammer down the same message, maybe after a year they will get what you're trying to say. So that's the over communication piece.
Yeah.
And then the last piece for me is the culture of feedback. You've created the cohesion in the team, you have clarity of vision and where you're going, you're communicating well and often, but you also need to be agile and look at yourself and say, okay, what's going well and what is not going well, and where do we need to change and be more agile. So
Mm.
that's for me that would be the 4 points that I see in developing a high performing team. The last one that is not in the book and that I added for me and for my team and that was super relevant last year is around well-being.
Right.
You need to have a high performing team. You need to be caring for them. So you need to have their well-being. Sometimes I think about benevolence as a value or something that I have, that is really helping others,
Yeah.
and helping them. I think last year more than ever was an important piece where think we all had a sense of empathy and compassion that we brought to the table.
Yeah.
And so you need to think about your team's well-being. How are they? How are they coping? How can you help them? How do you give them the space to look after their well-being? That's for me has been a focus, and I think that helped in creating a high-performing team.
That makes total sense. A lot of what, and I love that. I love that strategy that you have. Those 4 or 5 elements that you're focused on all the time, and all the team are involved in developing it with you. A couple of things kind of struck me as you were talking there. I can't remember the name of the author of the book. Maybe I can put it in here, but the phrase used in it was, and it was around communication, is when you're tired of saying it, people are starting to hear it, or when you're tired of saying it, people are starting to listen. So that makes absolute sense. Um, and on that benevolence piece, I'm doing a study on positive psychology at the moment, and one of the facts that has really stuck out for me since I started it was. They Studies are showing that people who are happy, in their work and life in general, are up to 10x more productive. So, I mean, like, back to your point, it is
Mhm.
absolutely crucial. There should be a plan for it. But so
I have, yeah,
sorry, Matt.
I don't know if we want to talk about well-being at all, but I had something that when you talk about happy, there's something for me that has been, that happiness is super important, but happiness usually is looked at the wrong way,
Hmm.
right? We look at happiness on external factors, on things that you will find one day when I have more money, I have a bigger title, I have this. And so a lot of the work, and I've been there, like I've totally been there, the chasing.
Yeah.
But there's a moment where happiness found within is much stronger than the happiness that you can find in external factors. So I've been into meditation for a number of years now. And what I found is that state of flow that I see and um, is about being happy in the moment with what you have,
Yeah.
with a great vision for the future. And for me, it's been what I've been focusing on is every day, how can I be happy for what I have today? And even in the hardest of the hardest time of last year, how can you be happy for what you have? And how can you have still a great vision for your future and what you want to achieve? And I think for me, that's been also the secret of, you can call it success. I think your success is your definition of success. But for my own definition of success, that's what I've has helped me, is waking up every day and feeling happy and content for what I have,
Mm.
with still that great vision of what the future could be.
That's uh, that's really insightful stuff, and I love it. It makes so much sense. I mean, like, you got to enjoy your day to day. It's a long journey. You got to enjoy your day to day, but having that vision, I really like that. I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about that and maybe come back and ask you more questions on it. But I really like that, Matt.
Sure, anytime.
Matt, I love the structure that you talk about with when you're building out those kind of high performance teams. Can you tell me a little bit about what, um, some of the biggest challenges that you've come across when you're building those teams?
Well, I think when I look, even just looking back at the last year, I mean, for me in general, just from what I do and the type of teams that I build, I think the challenge is that we have a high churn. Like my team is a talent engine as much of being a pipeline engine. So we
Yeah.
bring in fantastic people with great potential. We give them all the tools and the skills, and we help polish their potential to move to the next role. So we keep having to change. I promote 40% of my team every year. So if you
Wow.
take out of the 400 or 500 people that we have, that's a lot of people that we need to move and replace and retrain and do that every year. So I think that's one of the biggest challenge. First is how do you make sure that you constantly have the flow of talent?
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that they are all that we have a standard in which we are, you know, helping them grow. Um, I've I had that vision for my team that we are, you know, the sales academy or the sales university. I want you know Salesforce sales dev to be seen for the outside to be where you're coming to learn and learn your trade if you want to be in sales.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. You know, those things had to take time. And when you look at last year,
Yeah.
everything went, you know, head over heels. We had to rethink all our processes. What does it mean to onboard when you're completely everything is online and virtual
Yeah.
and people haven't
Yeah.
met their teams and you can't just turn around and ask a question. You have to set up a meeting and have a 30-minute conversation with somebody. You know, it's all of this
Yeah.
has been more challenging. So
Yeah.
it has been some of the thing we really had to look at in our processes on how do we change this to make it more relevant to the way we're living now. And
Yeah.
we're only scratching the surface. There's a lot of things that we haven't figured out yet.
Yeah. That's a super insight. I think in different forms, and some people have said things very similar to what you're saying there, but in different forms, what I've heard back from so many leaders that I've spoken to is one of the biggest challenges is just, onboarding, getting the right people, talent every time is, I mean, it seems kind of obvious when you talk about it, but every time it's said to me, I kind of go, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Do you
It's
know? So, sorry, I'm just going to do a quick. Earlier, I talked about V2 Mom and what is the
Yeah.
V2 Mom, and for me, my V2 Mom is structured around four pillars, which is people. So hiring the right people, having the right capacity all the time, developing them, promoting them. Culture, which is creating the right culture and the right environment so that they feel a sense of purpose, they know why they're coming to work, they're excited, there's a sense of fun. What I call operational excellence, which is the tools and the processes we're giving them. How do they do their job? Something that's simple to digest and really impactful. And then the last one is alignment, which is working with everybody around you.
Mm.
So talent has always been at the core of what we do. And the core of it starts with the people. If you don't have the people, nothing follows.
Yeah.
But this year, interestingly, with my team, we started to discuss and we said one of the biggest challenge that last year brought is that that sense of the culture has been eroded. People don't feel the sense of family in the same way that they did when they were in the office. And so
Mm.
when you come and you're an external, you don't know anything about Salesforce culture and or for any company in any way, you join virtually and you're in your office and you're talking to your colleagues online. How do you create that sense of culture? So this year we've decided that culture was our number one focus because without the right culture, it's going to be very difficult to attract the right talents.
Yeah.
And so we want to focus on what does it mean to be at Salesforce in sales dev? What is the culture that we want to have? How are people going to live that culture, every day and what are we going to do
Yeah.
so that we're known outside for having that culture and people want to join us. That's the focus.
And like you've brought me perfectly into the next question I was going to ask you. It's around, how remote working has impacted us today, and I think you've highlighted a couple of items there. How are you? Can you share any tips? I'm just conscious of the time as well, Matt. I know you've a hard stop in 13 minutes, and we will finish on time. I promise. I've only two more questions really.
Okay.
The culture piece and kind of the remote working. I like how are you? What can you share any of those plans or how you're overcoming those kind of remote work challenges? And have you seen any? Have there been any changes, for example, to kind of the fundamentals of leadership or the fundamentals of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or is it more of the same but applied in a different way?
No, it's not more of the same. I think we had to pivot, in a short couple of weeks back in March last year. We had to change completely and think about what did it mean to lead a virtual team and to lead people. So it's great when you've been a virtual leader all the time and you have team, everywhere in the world and you're used to this. But for a lot of people, it was, you manage people in the office, you were coming in the office and you were managing people there. So
Yeah.
we had to change. I'd say the first thing that we changed and really helped was those daily huddles or whatever you want to call them, but that daily touch point with your team, even if it was just to check on each other how we were doing. So
Yeah.
I talked about empathy, compassion at the beginning. You know, there was a big sense of this, of a bit more empathy and compassion for the people around. So I think that had changed.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was about, this the engagement that is more difficult. So you're online and you can be behind your camera, following, not following, sometimes not behind your camera. So we had to have sort of team agreements about how we're going to work together if we want this to work,
Yeah.
and have the right engagement from our people. And then on the sense of family that I talked about, or that, we lost the international vibe. There's 51 different nationalities at Salesforce in Dublin. So
Wow.
it's not, everybody was talking to each other and having chats at the coffee machine. And all of a sudden you were in a virtual environment as a French person, only talking to French people,
Uh,
because you're only within your team. That was a
yeah.
big shock. That's not what people can join for. So we brought in virtual get-togethers where there is a random pick of two people that are linked together, so you can opt in for it, and then every week you get an email that says, "Hey, you've been matched with that person," and you organize a 15 minutes coffee break with that person. So I've been on a few where I
It's a
just
great idea. I love that.
I just spent 15 minutes with some SDRs and BDRs in my team and just shooting the breeze and see how they were, and I think it really helps, to get a bit of that sense of family back.
That is really cool. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but that kind of multicultural environment is hugely impacted, and like 51 uh, uh, um, different nationalities in your company is quite incredible. And it's like, even as you're saying it there, I can think back to like both FireEye and VMware, where I worked with people from all over EMEA, and there's a strong sense of it there, whereas of course when you're working at home, as you say, if you're French, you're speaking French. It doesn't matter if you're in Cork or Dublin, wherever you are. That is really cool. I think that's a fab idea. I love that mixing up idea.
It's not patented, so you can take it.
Okay. There you go. Maybe I should try and figure out how to patent it. Did you are there kind of specific technologies that you're using, Matt, to help you during this period of remote work, or I mean, planning to use going forward?
Um, Not specifically. I mean, we have moved to the Zoom calls and whatnot,
Yeah,
or Slack now that Slack and Salesforce are getting closer and closer together.
yeah,
We're using Slack a lot more to drive this interaction. Um, I think it's been also for tools like computer telephony integration
yeah,
that helps kind of remote listening and helping reps to listen to their peers and jump on calls has been really helping on the virtual environment. Those
yeah,
are the things that I would say probably impacted the most.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I guess that the technology feels today like it's superb in terms of teleconference. Like our call here today, it's so clear. It feels like I'm sitting in front of you nearly.
And I
Um,
mean, it's not a promotion forum, but Salesforce has done a lot to help companies in terms of technology. Our platform, um, we've been using our platform to help companies get back to work safely. We're using our platform for the vaccine and helping to distribute the vaccine distribution. So there's a lot that technology is helping to do
yeah,
in the current environment to make it a bit easier.
yeah, yeah. And I'm a huge Salesforce fan and always have been. It's enabled me to do things that I simply wouldn't have been able to do down through the years. I'd love to talk to you more about the vaccine piece and how you're doing that, but I know I've only got 5 minutes left, and I have one last question to ask. And we kind of touched on this when you're talking about meditation, but one of the things that I'm really fascinated by is, what leaders do to help bring the best version of themselves, to the table to work every day. And I know you were mentioning it earlier, how important it is for the leader in how they speak and how they are, how they present themselves and their mood, etc. What a massive impact it has on the team. So you do need to be on form pretty much all the time. Do you, what sort of things do you do to kind of to maintain that?
Um, there's a number of things that I do, and sometimes you need to be quite selfish with how you protect your time.
Mm.
Okay, so for example, right now with homeschooling and pandemic, and my wife is working from home as well. We've had to split, and I've been clear with my team that I'm spending time with the kids and protecting my time with the kids, but I'm also protecting my time for myself. So I'm an early bird. I usually rise around half five, maybe six if I'm a bit
Well,
tired.
that's early.
No, that's the thing, which means I need to protect my sleep, which means the day before I can't go to bed at 12 or 1 in the morning. Otherwise, if I do, I know it's going to have an impact on me. So I try to be quite, follow a routine. And for me, it's building a routine that works for you and sticking to it.
Mm.
And so my routine kind of goes like this, I get up at half five or six. I come down and I do a bit of meditation or breathing exercise. I recommend it for the Wim Hof method is a great thing, mixing cold water and mixing breathing exercises. This is super impactful and really helped me with the mental clarity, but also the physical. I go for a walk, then it's still dark, and even in winter, it's still dark, and I go for a walk for half an hour around. I have lovely walks around my house, and I come back. I try to journal when I can. It doesn't not always possible, depending on when the kids are awake.
Yeah.
Or I read a book called The Daily Stoic. The Daily Stoic by a guy called Ryan Holiday is amazing. If you're into Stoicism, I really recommend it. If you're not into Stoicism, I really recommend it. It's
Right.
very short, one page per day, that help you see things differently and open your mind to other ideas and anchor you in a bit more of that happiness, that I talked about, and say, you know
Yeah.
what, I don't really have much to worry about or to complain about, and let's do what I'm here to do. I'm here to
Yeah.
do something. I have a calling and a purpose. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
That's excellent. You're the second person I've spoken to who mentioned Stoicism, and I have to check it out. I'm going to have to check it out now. And I love that.
I'm
I love
I'm
that.
I'm hooked. I'm hooked. So you have to check it out. Yeah.
I'm going to have to check it out. I'm going to have to check it out. And look, you've in the past you've given me steers, that actually some of the steers have led me to doing these podcasts that I'm sitting in front of you with at the moment. So I'm going to have to check out that Stoicism piece. Um, Matt, this has been a really fantastic conversation. I think we're coming up to the cutoff point, but I'd just like to say thank you so much for your time. That's been really insightful. There's so much in here that I think no matter whether you're a senior leader or an individual contributor that you could take away from. So thank you very, very much.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.